How's it going, John? How's it going, Gabe? Do you feel like absolute chads today?
Going great. It's going great. How about you guys?
I feel like a grandmaster chad today.
Grandmaster Chad.
He's always a Grandmaster Chad.
I didn't feel quite like a grandmaster chad last week. It would just below, but then we got there in the end. I managed to get into that flow state, and I was there.
Very good.
So yeah, my name is Josh Jables, and welcome to the CHADcast. Today, I'm joined by John and Gabe. And what we're going to be talking about are the four traits of a true leader. So, John, tell me about yourself, bro.
Thanks, Josh. My name is John Antonucci, and I'm the founder of SML Consultive, where we empower leaders to change the world. But I did not start as a founder or a consultant. I started as a lawn maintenance person. 7 years old, I started working. My entrepreneurial spirit was strong, and I noticed that the lady down the road needed to have her grass mowed. So I went to my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, can I borrow the lawnmower so I can go see if..." we called her the crabapple tree lady because in her front yard she had a big crabapple tree. So that's how I knew her. I didn't know her name. Turned out her name was Linda. Anyways, I went and asked if I could mow her yard. My dad was a great business person and taught us great money management and business. And he said, "Sure, for every yard you mow, you're using my mower. You owe me $1. You can keep the rest." And that's how business works. And so that's what we did. And that turned into a full-fledged lawn and landscaping. We did lawn mowing and leaf raking and snow shoveling because we were there in the Colorado area. By the time I was 12, I had 5 different little business pursuits, from delivering newspapers to lawn maintenance to, you remember those catalogs we used to sell out of as a kid for like fundraisers? I found one of those that would pay me cash money for every item I sold. And so doing that, and I was... stocking the produce store in downtown, and just all sorts of stuff. Right about that same time, I got involved in martial arts, and by the time I was 15, I was an assistant instructor. By the time I was 17, I was a full-time instructor, and by the time I was 19, I had over 500 students now in the Phoenix metro area after moving there when I was 15. So just a very active young life, full of entrepreneurialism, a lot of success, a lot of really cool stories that I could share. But unfortunately, I wasn't a man. I was a male, but wasn't a man. I didn't have character. I didn't have integrity. You couldn't trust me. And when I was 19, that kind of all came together in a really horrible decision when I went with 3 of my friends, and we had this brilliant idea to light a building on fire. And if that wasn't bad enough, my best friend, who's the one that physically struck the match, did not make it out of that fire alive. And I lost my best friend in that. And of course, there are legal consequences for those types of decisions. So I ended up spending 12 years in the Department of Corrections. It was a lengthy journey, but one that was largely redeemed. I wish to everything that I could take back the choices that I made as well as the consequences, but you can't do that in life, unfortunately. All you can do is move forward, and I did my best to move forward productively. I took advantage of every class, program, and anything I could. Ended up earning several degrees while I was in there, but really what I was most proud of is my opportunity to serve that population. And in the 12 years of my incarceration, what I was known for most was both my involvement with the church services as well as helping to facilitate and implement something that we called IPP. IPP stood for Inmate Peer Programs, where we provided resources, tools, classes, events, all sorts of things that were designed to help empower people to successfully transition from a life of crime into contributing members of the community. And so after 12 years, that's kind of what I was known for. I'm thankful that the situation was largely redeemed in that. And when I got out, hit the ground running pretty quickly, was asked to be the training manager for an international logistics company. From there, I transitioned into director of revenue. And along the way, I realized that we had a problem internally, but I also realized it was a problem externally, and that was we weren't empowering our leaders. We weren't actually giving them the tools they needed. We were expecting them to lead these teams, these departments, these divisions, and we just kind of hoped they'd figure it out. And so that aroused in me a passion that I realized, you know what? I've been training martial arts instructors. I've been training people in rehabilitation. I've coached soccer. I mean, I've done all these things. This is really what my life has led up to. It's led up to an opportunity to empower leaders. And so that's what SML now is all about. It's helping people. Gabe is a great example, and he could speak for himself, but he's in that kind of frontline middle management position, and I had the privilege of walking alongside him in his journey a little bit to just kind of give him some insight, I guess. Not the answers, because the answers I think he has on his own, but some insight and perspective on some things that he could do to be an effective leader, and it's been really, really cool to hear some of the stories of as he's implemented those things and been a great leader for his team.
Well, John, I appreciate you sharing a bit about yourself, and it sounds like you've come a long way in those 12 years, and I love how you're
Indeed.
no stranger to child labour as well.
Yeah, no, I'm all about it.
But yeah, man, all good. I love it. So, without further ado, I think we should just get into it. So,
Sure.
John, please tell me what the 4 traits of a true leader are.
As I have both led and trained leaders and seen bad leaders and kind of run the gamut of leadership, I think that there's so much to being a good leader. But these 4 things that I'd love to talk to you guys about today are things that every good leader has. There's always going to be some differences in personality. There's always going to be some differences in execution. And not everyone is always going to be super strong in every area. But when it comes to these 4 things, I think if you can do these 4 things, your leadership will be positively impactful. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean your team is always going to like you. It doesn't mean that even that every project is going to turn out perfectly. There's just no way to promise that, right? But if you can do these 4 things, I feel as if at the end of whether it's the end of your life or the end of your time in that position or just the end of that project, I feel like you'll be able to look back and say, I made a positive impact. I did what I was called to do as a leader. And so the 4 things, I'll just kind of give them a nutshell, and then we can dive into each one as you kind of want details. But I believe the first attribute of a great leader is that they love their people. I don't think you can effectively lead anyone unless you genuinely want their best interest. You can manage them, you can supervise them, you can direct them, you can do all sorts of things without caring one iota about them, because at that point you are managing them as an asset, or you are directing them as a drone of some sort, right? You can do those things and not care about them, but if you really want to lead, that is a sense of really inspiration, and you have to care about them, or they're not going to care to follow you. So I think that's the first aspect of leadership, is genuinely loving those you're trying to lead. And then in that place of love, I think we have to make ourselves available. I think this is something that all leaders, myself included, really struggle with, because we get focused on what one of my friends calls the it. The it factor is, what do we need to accomplish? And we're so focused on the it that we forget about the we. And so we don't do a great job of making ourselves available. And I actually have a whole YouTube series, I think 9-part series on availability, and just how difficult it is for us as leaders to really make ourselves available. And then when we think we are, we don't usually do it right. So we can talk about some of that as well. But then in that space of availability, we have to take this one step further, and we got to combine the love and the availability and really hit our third objective, and that is to truly listen. When I say listen, I mean allow the words being spoken to have an impact on us. Again, we're really bad at this because us as leaders, we've been taught in so many ways, but primarily through culture, that we have to have the answer. And so we're not really listening to understand, we're listening to give the next answer. And we're listening to say, well, here, do this, we'll do that, well, what about this? And we're not actually listening to their heart, we're not actually trying to understand what they're saying. And so because of that, sure, we're available and sure, they're in front of us, but we're not demonstrating love for them. We're really demonstrating that we want to get them out of our office as fast as we can so that we can get back to the it. And so that's our third thing. So loving our people, making space for them via availability, listening to them. And then the fourth aspect that I really think makes a dynamic leader is not unique to me. I stole this from another great leadership expert, but find the yes. Find a way to empower your leaders. That doesn't mean giving them everything that they want. Please don't misunderstand. But it does mean that when they're coming with a legitimate request, how can we work together to find a way to make that a reality, even if it requires them doing most of the work and us simply providing a space for them to do that. One of my people just recently, actually, I got an email, and I loved the email because he basically said, hey, it's usually around this time of year that we talk about raises and compensation and whatnot. And he said, I know how you are as a leader, so let me do this. Here's what my objective is. Let's collaborate on how I can do the work necessary to meet that objective and those dollar amounts. And I grinned. I really did. Just like this as I read the email, because it speaks to what I hope is a culture where they know I want to find the yes. I want to find a way for them to meet that goal, but I can't just give it to them. There's going to have to be collaboration, and we're going to have to find a way to make that a reality. So love, availability, listening, and yeses, I think, really just make it, lay a foundation, if nothing else, that allow us to make an impact as a leader.
Yeah, man, I like it. So it sounds to me like it's very much about finding the win-win and what works, not just what's best for you, but what's best for the team overall.
Yeah, when I talk about love, I think a lot of people, they get stuck because we have, I believe, misinterpreted love kind of in the Western context, right? And the love gets used as a manipulation tactic. We're all men here, and so I don't know if you've ever had a woman or just somebody say, well, if you loved me, you would. And then you can kind of fill in the blank about what that was supposed to mean. And so, well, that's not love. If you have to say, if you love me, you would, that is not love being displayed, right? Because now we've turned it into a manipulation tactic instead of an authentic expression of care and concern. So that's not what we're talking about. When I say love, I say that love is the outpouring of genuine concern for another human being. It's the outpouring of concern. So what does that look like? And I give this example a lot because people will say, well, if I'm finding the yes and I'm loving them, does that mean that I just give my team everything that they want? No, absolutely not. Can you guys hear that dinging?
Yeah.
Hopefully not. Yes?
Yeah,
okay.
it's all good.
I'm so sorry, guys. Let me turn off this notification. I don't know what's going on with that, and I apologize. But I don't want to disrupt the podcast.
It's all the clients reaching out to John. He's a popular guy.
We're with the podcast now, guys.
Yeah, bear with us.
We're breaking the fourth
exactly. I think what I need to do is I just need to turn off notifications if I can. But I thought I had them turned off, so that doesn't work very well. There we go. Sound settings. We're gonna turn these off right away. While I'm turning them off, let me continue the thought so that we're all tracking together. So when you say, you have to do what's best both for the person or the individual and the organization, you're absolutely correct, right? If somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I want, let's just say an astronomical raise, a raise that is outside of the bounds that would be reasonable for that position and the value that they're adding. Well, then the question that has to be asked is this a big picture best solution, not just for you, but for the team, but even including you, right? So what happens if I'm paying my staff more than is reasonable at market value? Well, a couple of things, right? Let's say Gabe comes to me and Gabe says, hey, John, I would really like to make more money. And so I really think I'm worth $50 an hour. And I go, yes, but your position, the top level of that position is 35 an hour, whatever. Yeah, but I think I'm worth 50, and if you really loved me, you would give me 50, because you keep saying you love me as a leader, so I really would like to see that come to fruition. And so I go, okay, and I get manipulated into this idea of I'm gonna give him his $50. Well, here's why that destroys not just Gabe, but the whole organization. It destroys Gabe because Gabe is not going to be able to have an output of $50 an hour in this position, assuming that we've assigned him correctly. And so here's what happens. He ends up being resented by the rest of the team, because eventually it will come out. And the company will not be able to afford Gabe long term. And so while he'll have a short term success, what's going to eventually happen? Gabe is going to price himself out of a job. And the minute we look for a cost saving measure, the top guy that's getting paid outside of what his position merits is going to be the one that gets cut. And so now I didn't even serve Gabe well, let alone the entire organization or the entire team, because I've obliged this request. So going back to the previous kind of real story that I gave a second ago, if Gabe comes and says, hey, I want $50 an hour, what do I need to do to get there? That lets me serve the team very differently. Now I can say, all right, well, in order to get to $50 an hour, we need you to get to director level. And here's the path to director level. You're going to need to complete this. You're going to need to be able to prove this. You're going to need to be able to demonstrate that. And at least one person needs to retire, right? Or whatever that looks like in order to get him there. And so now Gabriel has a charted course. Here is my end game to $50. And now the organization can't deny that he deserves it. Why? Because he's taken the steps, made the moves, done the things, been the person that merits $50 an hour. And so that example can be applied to vacation time or really anything. What does it take to find the yes? Defining the yes is not just saying yes whenever. It's serving both the organization and the individual well by seeing both the heart of the individual, which I would need to do in this hypothetical scenario, as well as looking big picture, kind of like, and I hate to make this this comparison because I don't want it to be demeaning. I really don't, but it sounds like it. So bear with me. You almost have to lead as the same way you would with your children. Now, I don't mean being condescending. I don't mean talking to them like they're babies or children, but I do mean if you have a child that really, really loves to play, you want to find a safe place for them to do that, and the middle of a busy boulevard is probably not the place. And so if they're insisting on running out into the street, you are going to create boundaries that say, no, that is not permitted. And it's not because you hate them. It's not because you don't want them to have fun. It's because you love them and you care about them, and you care about them in a way that allows you to see the bigger vision more than they can see as they run out into the street to play because it seems fun. And I think the same kind of mentality has to be among leaders, where sometimes we have to make the hard decisions to say, in this case, I'm going to say no to the request, but yes to your heart. You want a place to play. You want a way to make a new wage. You want a new position. Great. We can do that in the boundary of this particular setup. And again, depending on each organization, depending on each situation, that's going to be a little bit different. But that's how we can really make sure that we're serving oh my goodness, I keep hitting the mic. Everybody. I talk with my hands. I'm Italian. I talk with my hands. I just need to keep my hands under me, not do that. But yeah, it serves the whole organization better in that way. And that's really what we want to accomplish, is to serve the individual and the organization well. And remember that by serving the organization well, we don't have to diminish the individual. We can actually love the individual by serving the organization, knowing that the organization is what is serving the individual. And so it kind of creates a loop of real service.
Yeah, man, I can definitely agree on that. And I've done it again. I've let Gabe just sit there in the corner like a quiet kid who's in trouble. So Gabe, please, by all means, share your thoughts right now, bro.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's easy to get jaded as a leader. You have people come in, they screw up a lot of things, and then they leave, or maybe they try to get you in trouble for different reasons. And then when the new people phase in and the old people phase out, I find it personally, it's really easy to just feel jaded and say to yourself, well, I'm not going to put myself out there like that. I'm not going to love John because, look at what these other people did. And you don't only find that in the workplace, you find that in, any relationship in life that you can build. So what would you say to that, to a leader who's been burned by previous employees, that wants to have that heart for his employees, but at the same time is very, wary of walking into that.
I'd say to you or that leader the same thing I've actually said to there's a specific conversation that sticks out in my mind, and that is a conversation that I had with a leader. I was going through that. I had done, for the sake of this conversation, everything right. I don't mean that I was perfect. I just mean that I hadn't done anything ethically or morally wrong, but there were allegations that I had. And the allegations were so strong that I was actually being what they called proactively removed, because they suggested that the attacks were not going to stop no matter how vindicated I was. And I was fully vindicated in this situation. And I remember having the individual say to me, if this is going to happen to you, like, what chance do I have? He was my protege, and he was going to be stepping up into the responsibilities that I was going to no longer have. And I sat down with him and I said, Kyle, here's the reality that you face as a leader. And this is going to be true no matter where you are, no matter who you're working with or who you're working for. You have to be willing to make decisions knowing that the only thing you might have is that at the end of the day, your head can hit that pillow knowing that you've done the right thing. And if you look at every great leader down through history, and you can name them, whether you're talking American, whether it's Winston Churchill, and we'll do that for Josh, or Abraham Lincoln, or any great leader that you can name, right? Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, they're all over. Every single one of them had to be willing to go through that. They had to be willing to say, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care how this is going to make me look, the PR, whatever it is. I'm going to make the decision that I know is right. And it's probably going to cost me. And in many cases it did, right? Lost elections, lost lives in some cases. And now we look back and go, oh, these are amazing people. Largely because they were willing to say, I'm going to do the right thing. And so I would love to give the answer to a leader that says, hey, look, if you'll just follow A, B, and C, you won't have to deal with that. But I'd be lying to them. I would absolutely be lying. I'd be giving them a false hope, and it would probably make them happy, and I would get a good Google review at first. And then about 6 months later, it would all go bad for them. And so it really, really boils down to a willingness. That's why I believe servant-minded leadership is so important, because it boils down to a willingness to serve, even at the expense of oneself, because that's what meaningful and impactful leadership does. Again, you can be a manager, a supervisor, a director. I mean, you can have all sorts of titles and not do anything I just said. But if you want to positively impact people's lives, if we want to be looked at in 30, 60, 90, 100 years and people go, that man made a difference. That man changed my life and changed my family's trajectory and gave me something, that's the only way we're going to do it, is if we are willing to be a true leader.
Sure. And I've seen that satisfaction, as I'm sure you have, when you do successfully impact somebody. Right. And then they come up to you. I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. Hey, boss, I love my job. Thank you for pushing me for that promotion. My family's totally different, this and that. So that's amazing. But the thought that you are laying out there coincides with what Grandmaster Chad over here teaches, which is thinking of who you want to become. And then I'll let you speak to it, Josh, but you know what I'm putting down here. And it works the same way in this leadership. You're kind of operating at a higher plane. I might lose my job, even though I didn't do the wrong thing, but I can, sleep better at night knowing that I did what was, ethically, morally, or legally correct. But I'll let you talk more, Josh, about, yeah.
Yeah, put me on the spotlight, bro. Yeah, man, you've got to kind of see things from a long-term perspective. It's not just about you in this moment. It's about how it's going to impact later down the line. And if you're constantly focusing on, oh, it's all about me, it's all about how I feel, you're just going to damage all the relationships you have, because people are going to be like, well, this guy is only out for himself. How can I trust in his leadership when he's only interested in what he's got going on, you know. So
Yeah, and there's so much of an opportunity there to show a team how to lead as opposed to talking about it. I can think of a leader that often talked about what they aspired to be, and that was great because it kind of set a tone. The problem is that they didn't follow through with action, and it created more disappointment because when you first met this individual, he would talk about some of his heroes and, like you said, thinking big picture, and he would cite his favorite book and things like that. It's like, oh man, this is going to be great. Well, then he didn't follow through with any of it, and so sometimes it's a matter of just saying, like, for example, one of the things that I do is I believe in 360-degree feedback. A lot of organizations do unilateral feedback, and so what that usually looks like is every 6 months or a year, the organization tells the employees how they're doing. And some of the best organizations are like, hey, listen, we're going to tell you both how you did and what we're hoping for and what your next goals are, and we're gonna really make this an empowering experience. But it's still unilateral. It's one person telling another person what they need to do differently. And what they don't do is they don't take real feedback into the equation. And so I really recommend 360-degree feedback, which means if I am the supervisor and I am going to be evaluating Josh, I'm not just going to take my opinion of what I see of Josh and then write a report and say, all right, Josh, here's what you're doing good, here's what you're not doing so well, and here's what I would like you to do in the next 6 months. No, I'm going to do at least 3 things. First of all, before I have any of my own opinions as his leader, I'm going to, if Josh is responsible for anyone, I'm going to get the opinions of the people that report to Josh. Then I'm going to also see about Josh's colleagues, his people that are on his same level. How is he working with them? And then I also want to hear what Josh thinks. What is Josh doing? How does Josh feel about himself and his performance and what he's up to? And after I have all that, then I can put my own 2 cents on there and say, all right, now I feel like I've got a big picture. But here's the beauty of that. In this dynamic, guess what? Josh now has a voice in evaluating me, because he would be the subordinate that now gets to influence my feedback structure. And there's going to be my peers that are also consulted, and I'm going to be asked. And so instead of this being a unilateral, which is usually what it is, right? Gabe is my boss, and so he evaluates me, and I'm Josh's boss, so I evaluate Josh, and Josh is somebody else's boss, so he evaluates them. And it's this unilateral approach with often like 1 or 2 questions at the end that's like, oh, and how do you feel about how I'm doing? And nobody ever tells their boss how they really think they're doing, right? You want to keep our job. So we never actually give a real response. But when you provide a 360-degree feedback circle, and I can talk for a long time about the value of even anonymous feedback and all of that, so people really feel like they can share what's really on their heart, you end up with this opportunity to really learn and grow as a leader and ask yourself, okay, here's the feedback I just got about myself. Does that match what Josh just talked about? Does that match with who I aspire to be and what I really want to accomplish? And so that's half of that availability and listening that I talked about earlier. Sometimes availability looks like open door hours. Sometimes it just means that when someone actually gives us feedback, we don't get defensive. We don't come up with an excuse or a reason for why we had to do it that way. And I know I'm just as susceptible as a human being as anybody else to doing this, but how many times as a leader do we, or just as a man, right? We're talking, this isn't just for management. This is for fathers. This is for uncles. This is for people that are leading maybe in a non-official capacity. How often when someone comes to us and says, hey, I didn't like that, or hey, did you know you're doing this? And we go, well, what you didn't consider is blah, 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 blah. Instead of thinking, what am I not considering? Even if it's just something as simple as saying, thanks for sharing that. I have some thoughts, but I'd like to chew on what you just said, and I'll come back to you. We'll have more conversation later after I actually think about what you just shared with me. And thank you, because I know it takes a ton of courage to tell somebody what you just said. And it might be, it might have felt like a slap in the face, and our dignity, our manhood might feel challenged. But real dignity. In fact, my most recent YouTube video says the biggest power move that a leader can make is letting someone be wrong about them. Let people think what they want. Either they've got a point and we need to grow from it, or they don't have a point and there's no truth to it. But visualizing where we want to go and what we want to do, being available, listening, and really receiving gives us that best opportunity to love our teams and be the leaders that we truly want to be.
I like it. And, you know, it definitely resonates a lot with like what's going on with me right now, you know, how I'm running the group. You know, we've got a big team behind this, and yeah, I need to be able to listen to how, you know, my moderators feel about, you know, me, and I have to be able to take that on board, you know, because, you know, it's like, I'll give you an example. Me and Simon did a video the other day, and we talked about boys versus men behaviours, and long story short, we pictured it as though, imagine Simon's, he's supposed to be my friend, he's given me 9 marbles, and you know, I didn't want marbles. And basically, long story short, because I'm waffling on a little bit, but I didn't invite Simon to my birthday party because, you know, he's not listening to me. He's this guy that eats all the ice cream. He's this guy that, you know, he's just not a good guy to be around. But Simon doesn't consider that. He doesn't consider how his actions have impacted everybody else. So by that lack of self-awareness, he's not being a good leader in that moment. He's being a boy, because that's essentially what it is. It's boyish, childish mentality. But yeah, we are getting we're halfway through the podcast now, so I think we need to kind of pick up the pace a little bit. So I believe that was the second stage of leadership.
You know, they're all so integrated, and I think that's what's neat about these 4. So yes, it was the be available part, but there's no way. So here's the beauty of this. I'll say it this way: if you love your people, you're going to want to be available for them. The same way that if you're dating, it's not hard to go on a date. You got time. You love the girl. You're gonna go on a date, right? That's not tough. It's not hard. And in that kit space, especially when you're first dating, some of us are not as good at this down the road, but when you're first dating, you're really good at listening as well, right? You're hanging on every word. Why? You want to know what her favorite flowers are, because you're going to bring those to the next date. And you want to know what her favorite gemstone is, because you're going to need that on the first anniversary. And you pay attention to all that. Now, 5 years down the road, we lose this a little bit, and I won't get into the whole marital side of things, but in the beginning, right, when you really care about someone, you love them, and so you make time for them, and you listen, and you find the yes. You really, really do, right? I mean, if she says she wants to go skydiving, and you got $12 in the checking account, I don't recommend this. I'm not a person that recommends going into debt, but let's just be honest. Us guys do some crazy things for love, don't we? All right, and so she says she wants to go skydiving. Next thing you know, we've taken out a new credit card so that we can make this happen, because we're going to make our woman's dreams come true. And so in that space, I feel like in leadership, it's really very similar, except hopefully we have a longer sighted vision than going and maxing out a credit card just to say yes, right? They're all interconnected, but that also happens negatively, right? You can't manufacture genuine listening if you haven't made yourself available, right? You can pretend to, but what's going to happen? There's going to be a misunderstanding. Because when we don't make ourselves available, we're going to hear part of what someone says. In us men, what do they call that? Selective hearing. I think that's the phrase, right? And so in that space of selective hearing, we're not going to actually hear their heart. And so we're going to misunderstand what they're saying, and we're probably going to take the wrong actions, because we're going to be so busy trying to meet a need that doesn't exist that we're not going to actually be there. The same thing would be true, right? We're not going to find the yes if we don't actually care. There was a book I read on parenting that I believe is just true for every relationship, or this particular section. And they said, only say no when you absolutely have to. Say yes as much as you can. Why? Because that way, when the no has to happen, they know there's a good reason for it. Instead of, well, They always say no. So of course. So they're all very connected. If we love our people, that's the foundation. That's going to create a space for availability. Now, this availability thing, I think I would love to kind of dive in on that a little bit more, because we've kind of focused more honestly on the listening and the loving. But that middle step of availability, I think we've kind of bypassed a little bit. And this is because it requires so much intentionality from us. Gabe, I know you've gotten a couple promotions recently. What's your current title again?
Safety, security, and transportation manager.
Oh man, that sounds really important. Is that as important as it sounds?
Or debatable. Yeah.
Debatable. Okay. Well, here's the reality. That title, forget about who Gabe is as a person, forget about how good of a job he does, forget about how bad of a job he does. Just the title makes him unapproachable. Not because he wants to be, but because there is an inherent hierarchical mentality or psychology that says that guy's important. And it's why if you ever see your celebrity crush or your role model, whatever, in the grocery store, you would think like you really like this person. You would go up, hey, I'm Josh, I'm your biggest fan. Most of us don't. Most are like, can't get the words out, right? And that's because of this weird psychology that makes someone unapproachable. And so as leaders that want to be approachable, because we love our teams, we have to take decisive action to bridge that gap, right? And I could go for the next hour just on this topic, but let me just say, it requires more than simply saying, my door is always open. I think a lot of people do that, and I think of an example of a manager or a director that I worked with where she would do that. Hey, my door's always open. Anybody that needs me, I'm always available. She really wanted to be, too. That wasn't like just a platitude that she said. She really, really wanted to be. But nobody ever came and talked with her, and she really couldn't figure out why. She just figured, I tell them, I don't know, whatever. Well, she was in the middle of doing an exit interview one day, and a young lady was quitting, and the reasons for her quitting came out, and bottom line, there were problems in the organization, and as the director listened to the best of her ability, she finally got to a point where she just couldn't take it anymore. She was like, why didn't you come to me? We could have fixed all of this. Like, what? Why are you waiting until now? And the young woman that she was talking to kind of put her head down, and she said, well, I tried. I wanted to, but every time I thought to come talk to you, your door was closed, or if it was open, you kind of, it was dark in there, and you kind of looked like you were really busy, and I just didn't want to disrupt you. And as the director thought about it, it occurred to her that despite saying my door is always open, and in fact, despite even opening her door for the majority of the day, here's what would actually happen that she wasn't thinking about until this moment. When she would first come into the office, she would go into her office and close the door because she usually scheduled all of her meetings in the mornings so that she had the afternoons free. Makes sense. Close the door. You don't want to be disruptive. You also don't want to be disrupted during your meetings. Makes perfect sense. The minute those meetings were over, of course, her emails had been building up. She would start plowing through the emails until right around lunchtime when she would go grab her lunch, go to the restroom, get all those things done. But knowing there was a pile of work to return to, she would grab her lunch, and this is where she would be intentional. She would leave her door open. Her door is always open. But the thing she wouldn't do is she didn't turn on the light because she was kind of buried in now eating, trying to eat as fast as she could so she could get back to work, and then going right back to work. And so what started with the best of intentions resulted in a door closed most of the morning because she never got around to opening it, and then a door that was open but lights off most of the afternoon because she never got around to turning them on, and a culture that despite her best efforts had become toxic because her availability wasn't intentional. And so I think that this happens a lot where we think we're available. We think we're doing what we can do, but we're not as available as we think we are. And so there's some things that we can do. My way is not the way, but I can tell you some of the things that I've done to try to overcome and bridge this gap. Thing number one is that every Friday I have open hours. So these are time, just it's time on the calendar that nothing else gets put into so that my staff always had an opportunity to come out, reach out to me, and touch base. But I knew that wasn't enough because people forget. So also every Friday I would remind them and let them know, hey, just so you know, open hours are today. Let me know. Let me know if you need me. I'm happy to be here. I also put it on their calendars, not just my calendar, but their calendars, so that it would also block off time for them and they would make sure to remember. And then lastly, I still felt like that wasn't enough. I thought, you know what, that's still tough. You still got to reach out. It was what we call an intra-remote. So we had in-office, hybrid, international, all that applying or part of the team. And so what else I did is every 6 months, I met one-on-one for 30 minutes with every single member of the division. This was not an evaluation. This was not where I gave them feedback. It's where I listened. I would ask questions. What's on your heart? What's going on in Josh's life today? How do you feel about your job, your team, your position, the company? Any thoughts? What would you do if you could make any change you wanted right now? And then I never held any of it against them. And they knew that. They knew they could say whatever they wanted, and I would just listen, and it didn't get held against them later. It didn't come up in review time. Well, I really wanted to give you this promotion, but you mentioned that you wanted more breaks, and that's not the kind of person we want around here. It was an honest exchange where I got to learn. And I asked harder questions sometimes too. What can I do to better empower you in the next 6 months? And the little things, so intentional availability. Have a candy bowl that people actually feel welcome to take something out of, right? If it's collected dust, you're not doing it right. Have a putting green, a dartboard, a something that invites people to come. And it's not for you to play around on and feel important. It's to invite people in and to create a collaborative approach. When people come in, be intentional. Don't sit at your desk. Come around the desk and sit in the chair with them, so that they can also, it can be a conversation, not a, I'm on the other side of the desk and he's important. And no, come. And so being intentional about these conversations and these opportunities, that making oneself available, I think, is a critical discipline of leadership that is incredibly difficult. And then I think I'd add one more thing to that. It's something one of my mentors used to call leading by walking about. And that is that we should actively be on the floor. If you are so busy that you have no time to go out and be with your people, I would suggest to you that you have not effectively delegated, and that you have you got a Messiah complex. You think everything has to be on you. Simultaneously, if you are so important that you think that you can't be with your people, you're not a real leader. And that might be something that is abrasive, but it's real. We should be out there with the people. We should be willing to do the work. There's no such thing as that's not my job with a leader. We do the work with them. It's something Elon Musk has become famous for, going out and actually sleeping on the floor of the Tesla plant because things were behind and he was there with the people doing the work. Regardless of what you think about the man, that is incredible. It's an incredible example, whether you like him or not, right? How many of us would love a boss that just cared enough to actually be with us instead of at his house sleeping in his nice feather bed while we're running the overnight shift? And so those are the types of things that I feel like really facilitate that availability, which we're only going to do that. Like we're not going to do that stuff unless we genuinely care about our people. Anybody can crack a whip. Not anyone can crack their door. And I think that's a big part. So that's really the second step in all this. And then in that space, we can implement all the things that we just talked about, all of the listening mechanisms and truly hearing and receiving feedback, and not being quick to give excuses or anything like that. But it's all in the context of that availability.
Sure. And they definitely pick up on it. I was doing some stuff up there in the main gate where one of my teams are at. They were falling behind on what they were doing. I jumped in, helped them out for 2 days, right? Just helped them do it. And it didn't go unnoticed by the team. The seniors pulled me in. Hey, boss, we really appreciate you, staying after to do that. That means a lot to us. We feel supported. So they're definitely seeing that, like you're saying.
100%. 100%. And that makes it so much easier to find the yes, right? Because when you're in that space, let's say they come to you and they say to you, hey, we don't have enough help at the gate. We need another body. And all you know is the paperwork. Well, I don't know if you really need another body. I mean, been fine for the last 10 years and we don't have that much more work. That's all irrelevant if you've actually done the work with them, right? If you whatever the industry. It's one of the reasons I love that show Undercover Boss. I assume we've all watched Undercover Boss. If you haven't, just watch one episode. You don't have to watch the whole series. They're not all good, but just the premise of the top executive going and being with the people, doing the work. In my opinion, that is the best way to lead. And I think if anyone steps in, I'll say this to anyone in the audience, that if you're coming into a leadership position having never worked in the positions you're supervising, please spend your first week or two doing the jobs of the people you'll supervise. Spend 2 days, spend a day just sitting with them, just not to judge, not to assess, just to understand. So that when they come to you, you actually have the ability to know what a reasonable yes is and how you can best serve the team. And know that, yeah, another person is necessary. I worked that gate with you guys. I don't know how you've been doing it. Like, you guys are superheroes. I'm going to try to get you some help as fast as I can because I now know what you're dealing with. Changes the conversation. Of course, the alternative could be true too. You don't need another person. You need to get off your bums. I worked with you guys. All right? Doing a lot of sitting around and not a lot of working. So let's be more productive for the sake of the team, because if we don't, we're going to have to make other changes. So either way, you end up with a better understanding in those scenarios. So I love that you did that, Gabe.
Sure. Could I also get you just to quickly talk about something that you mentioned on the calls leading up to this with Josh and I, the principle of somebody coming in and leaving their monkey on your desk.
Monkey on the desk. So this is, again, not an idea that's original to me, but the idea basically it comes into when you're a leader, people like to walk into your office and lay problems at your feet. Because in their mind, you're the leader, it's your job to solve them. And it's not your job. I'll give you an example. Somebody walks into you, Gabe, and says, hey, we need to find somebody to work the front gate. Thanks, boss, and leaves. Well, they've just taken the monkey off their back and laid it on your desk. And now you're stuck with this monkey that you feel like you've got to deal with, right? Well, man, what am I going to do with the monkey? I guess I'll talk to HR. We'll try to work. Or we can find a way to empower our people to deal with their own monkeys. And so when that same person comes in and says, hey, we need to get somebody for the front gate, it's, okay, that seems like a really interesting idea. Do me a favor. Why don't you go ahead and write up that proposal? And let us know kind of what the responsibilities would be that you envision in this new body. What would that look like? Who would they report to? You know, if this is something you feel strongly about, go ahead and build out the proposal the way it needs to be. Run it by me. I'll take a look. If I don't have any disagreements, we'll shoot it right to HR. And we'll see if we can't get that staffed. Well, what that does, it does two things. First of all, it gives them a voice. Right? It's not a no. It's not a yes. It's not a I'm going to say yes, but then it's going to get lost. It's I hear you. I want to know more, but I'm going to expect that if this is important to you, you are going to be empowered to add value to this equation. If you really feel like we need another person at the gate, great. I just need to understand the who, what, when, where, why, how. I had this conversation with someone recently. Someone said, hey, I would like to move this person and move this person. And I said, okay. I don't know. I actually still have notes. I don't know that that's the best, but write up the proposal. Let me know. How would we allocate staffing? What would the hours be? What are you recommending in terms of responsibilities? And then let's discuss it. And what that does is it takes it to where I'm already overburdened, right? If I can't effectively delegate, and I'll just throw in a quick thing here. Delegation is giving both authority and responsibility, not just the responsibility. Got to give people the actual authority to do what you're asking them to do. Otherwise, it's not delegation. But if I can't effectively delegate some of that, then I'm not raising up leaders. In my opinion, you're not a leader unless you have trained a leader who is ready to empower another leader. And it's a multi-generational leadership that should be being facilitated. So that's the idea of not letting people leave their monkeys on your desk. It's saying, hey, I'm here to empower you. I'm not here to solve all of your problems. I'm not here to do all of your work for you. I am here to empower you, to give you the tools, the resources, the inspiration, everything that allows you to be all that you can be allows you to step up into your destiny and lets you walk away and put your head on the pillow at night feeling accomplished, feeling like you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and feeling like you have done something to make this world, this company, this organization a better place to be. And if I'm not doing that, it's the equivalent of continuing to put food in your children's mouths, right? They have to eventually learn to do it themselves, or they're not self-sufficient and they can't grow up to be contributing members of the community.
Sure. And to add on what you said there at the end of, leaving your monkey on the desk, you said a real leader creates more leaders, right? And this is something that I heard in church yesterday. The pastor asked, how do you define a great teacher? He makes more teachers, right? So it's the same thing, and it plays in with the servant-minded leadership. My predecessor, he did care about me, right? He taught me his job, and he made sure the guy below me knew my job, and then when he phased out, with your help, you, John Antonucci, comparing notes with you for promotions and stuff, and then knowing the job ahead of me, I was able to move into that position because a true leader creates more leaders.
The minute a leader is spending time trying to protect their own position is the minute they cease to be a leader.
Sure.
I recall a conversation with somebody who told me early in my time there that he wanted my job in 3 years. Mm-hmm. And I told him, let's make it 2. And so I believe that that's the heart of a real leader. It's a leader that says, I want to raise people up. And there's no greater satisfaction as a leader than watching somebody that you have helped them strengthen their wings, take flight and soar.
Sure.
So guys, getting pretty late into the podcast now. We're really gonna have to wrap things up. So, I'm gonna say 5 minutes or less, John.
Yeah.
What else is there to add?
What else is what?
What else is there to add?
I think there's tons, right? As a company, we have 32 disciplines of leadership that we provide, and even that is not exhaustive. So there's always room for growth. There's always room for development. But I think I would love to just leave anyone who watches this, whether you're watching live or whether you watch this in a week, a month, a year, or 10 years down the road. Here is the legacy moment. If you want to leave a legacy, you have to be a leader that cares about other people. There is no other way to leave. I guess you can have a negative legacy, but if you want to leave a positive legacy, it has to start with people. I'll quote Zig Ziglar, who says, you don't build a business. You build people, and people build the business. And I think that if we can get more leaders with a mindfulness of their opportunity to dynamically and positively impact the people that they're leading, we have the capacity to absolutely change the world, because it only takes one person, right? Even just in this podcast, you've heard that I've had the privilege to walk along with Gabe. Gabe has had the opportunity to impact his team. His team is now impacting others. The ripple effect just keeps going. And it all starts. It was just a guy that's my best friend, or my brother's best friend. I met him at my brother's wedding, and he reached out and said, hey, I know you're doing leadership stuff. I have some questions for you. Now, if I didn't care about him, okay, well, you can get with my assistant. He even asked, hey, how much do you charge? Dude, you're my brother's friend, man. I'm not going to charge you nothing on that, right? And the idea there was, I care about you. And that's been the ripple effect. And who knows, maybe somewhere down the line, his company or something, maybe there will be an opportunity to serve in a paid capacity, but that's not the purpose, right? That's just an exchange of value. The value starts with genuinely caring about people. And if there's nothing else anybody takes from this podcast, there was a lot of tips and tricks and all that, and I can go on for hours about practical ways to implement these things. But that's going to be unique to each individual. I got to get to know you as a person and find out where your strengths and weaknesses are. What's your love language? What's the love languages of the people that are working for you? There's a lot that goes into that. But it all just starts with that foundation of love that makes you want to be there for your people and truly hear them in their heart, and then find a way to empower them to say yes.
I like it, man. So I'm going to try and demonstrate some leadership while live on the podcast right now. And guys, anyone who's watching right now, I want you to leave some comments. I want you to let me know how you feel about how I'm currently doing as the admin of this group. Do you think I'm doing a good job? Let me know. And also, while I'm reading these comments, I've just want to give a shout out to Amrit. I don't know what that emoji is on my PC. It's just a little dot, but thanks for checking in, bro. And Simon says, all I'm looking at is I gave you 9 out of my 10 marbles. Bro, I didn't want marbles. I didn't want them. You need some self-awareness, bro. But yeah, so yeah, I appreciate you coming on today, John. It's been really good. And another thing as well, I feel like Gabe has probably spoke more than I have this episode, so he's definitely getting his payback. So yeah. So there was something we wanted to talk about as well as we end this episode, and that is well, I'll let Gabe sort of talk about it because this is his section of the show.
Sure. Yeah. So we've had some controversy here in the group lately, and we always hate when that happens. So whenever it does, we like to question the source of controversy. And interestingly enough, the source of controversy is Grandmaster Chad himself, Josh Jables. So Josh, I would like to just bring some attraction to some of the infighting that you brought to the group here with your recent post, and just make you explain yourself and put you on the spot.
Well, I just love being on the spot, bro.
Absolutely.
So I will share my screen, and I'll show you the post in question. Can you guys see this all right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll read the post out. It says, leave my group immediately if you have a short attention span, can't follow simple instructions, say you need to improve but never do the work, refuse to take accountability, always complain or find the fault in everything, never post or comment, lack humility. You're welcome to stay if you discipline yourself. You're a grown man, not a boy emotionally. You always apply the lessons you are taught. Accountability is your source of strength. You're emotionally stable and you focus on the positives. You're appreciative of the group, its resources, and the work we do here for free. So, you want to know what I mean by that? Well, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to have flaws, bro. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to be imperfect, right? Because we all have struggles in some ways, and I think the short attention span probably triggered people the most. But what I'm essentially saying is that me, the moderators, we all put a lot of time, energy, and effort into this group, and we've decided to set some ground rules. We're setting some boundaries now, because a lot of people don't appreciate what we do. We have a goal in mind. We want to spread a message. We want to help people the best we can. And there's a lot of people, and I'm not saying that everyone who read my post it does fit this category of person, but we don't want to waste time on people that are not prepared to do the work, that aren't going to try. There's nothing we can do for someone who doesn't want to help themselves. And that's essentially what I'm saying. I'm saying that anyone who's prepared to do the work, by all means, I'm proud of you, and I'm happy to give you my time and energy. But if people are going to come to the group and complain, or they're not going to try, or they're going to just give nothing but criticisms, then I'm not interested. These are not the people I want in the group. So I hope that clears everything up, Gabe.
Sure. So I don't want to spark a debate here, right? But we do have John here, who has overseen leadership in different facets. So I would ask John, what do you think about this laying down of the ground rules, so to say, that Josh has put out here in the group?
Well, I think that in general, leaders have to put boundaries in place, right? If you don't put boundaries in place, you end up with chaos that reigns, because people don't know what to expect. And clarifying expectations is a critical part of leadership. At the same time, I would push back slightly on one phrase that I heard, and that was, I don't want to waste time on people. I don't think you're ever wasting time on anybody, even if they don't want to. At the same time, I do agree that you can't want something for someone more than they want it for themselves. I was on with somebody I respect and admire very much the other day, and we were talking about the idea that they could want me to be a millionaire. Like they could really just want me to be successful and be a millionaire. And they could want it so much that they just give me $1 million just so that I'm a millionaire. But if I don't have a heart of abundance, if I've got a scarcity mindset, if I'm just too locked into being poor, what's going to happen is I'm going to either spend it or waste it or lose it in some way so fast because I don't actually want to be a millionaire. That's not it. And so I agree with that idea. The Bible says, you don't want to cast your pearls before pigs, right? Because they don't know what to do with them. They don't know what to do with them. You would be wasting your time and energy. And so what I would say is, in this scenario, right, laying the ground rules with a heart of love, right? I want to love this group enough to say that I can't dedicate the necessary amount of time and attention and energy to the people that I'm really trying to serve if I'm spending more time arguing with people that don't want to be served. The only question is, and this is something, Josh, only you know the answer to this, I wouldn't even dare to speculate. The only question is, where is your heart as you say that, right? If the heart is, I'm a big shot and I ain't got time for people, well, that's a problem, right? That's not a leader. That's somebody that just wants to feel important. If your heart is, I have a finite number of resources, a limited number of hours in the day. I'm putting a lot of time, energy, effort, and whatnot into serving a group of people that I would like to believe I'm attracting the right people. And so if you're not interested in what I have to offer, my gift only goes so far, and if that's not the gift you're looking for, I'll bet you'll find a group that is. There's lots of groups out there that are there for the Karens. There's a lot of groups out there that are there for the, for the conspiracy theorists or whatever it is where you want to talk about the victim mindset. And so I think that the only question becomes, what's the heart behind the post? I didn't read. I saw there was 153 comments, which is impressive. I didn't read them all, so I don't know what the back and forth and the dialogue was. But that would be as a leadership, as someone who's passionate about leadership. People call me a leadership expert. I don't know if that's an effective term, but I'm passionate about it, if nothing else. For someone who's passionate about leadership, it always comes down to the heart, because here's the deal. Whether we frame it right, whether we say it right, people can feel our energy. Like there's something about it that people can sense if they're cared about or not. And so that would be really my emphasis on this, is just, hey, what's the heart behind the actions? Because you can do the same thing. Two people can do the same thing, but one person is doing it out of a heart of arrogance and the other one out of a heart of humility. And the humility heart is going to be the one that I'm going to advocate for as leadership.
Sure. And that's why I felt comfortable putting you on the spot there, Josh, because I know you, right? I know your heart in all of it. And I think it goes hand in hand with what John was saying there. You have a limited amount of hours. You're in a different time zone. And a lot of your group is over here in America, in Australia and Britain and everywhere else. But yeah, you're approaching it with the right heart. So, even if there are those phrases in there that might, kind of trigger some people, which sparks controversy, those of us that do know you know where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, and anyone who's willing to give me the time to listen to me and they want to understand better, that my intentions are much more wholesome than what you might see at first glance when I make these posts, and if you feel like you are being triggered, you feel like you have a problem, let's talk about it. I'm always open to feedback, but what I'm not open to is people who just want to criticize and just bring everything down, and because that's not constructive. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help me, just waste everyone's time. And that's kind of the sentiment of this post. I don't want to be wasting any more time on that, because it's just not good for anyone. But yeah. Sure.
So I guess I'll let you close, Josh, but in closing, guys, all of our viewers, John Antonucci, he's in the group now. We did it. So if you would like to reach out to him about anything, he's in the group. Punch his name in there, send him a message, and we've really appreciated having you on, John.
My pleasure, Gabe. Thank you so much for inviting me. Josh, Gabriel, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope that we've been able to do something that's beneficial and empowering for those that are able to listen to it.
Absolutely, man. And I'm just going to do some very, very shameless self-promotion right at the end here. So, guys, a bit of news about the group. We've just launched a new Elite Men's Self-Improvement group. It's free to join, and you'll get access to tons of resources. But this is for serious guys only. You know, I mentioned in that post, I want people who are going to try and going to actually put in the work. So, if that post resonated with you, then this group is probably the place for you. And what we're doing right now is a 44-day meditation challenge, and the benefits of this, it's going to make you more productive, you're going to feel more energized, you're going to be more focused and more clear towards your goals. And we would love for you to come and take part in this challenge. The members who are already part of this group, just after a few short days, they're already seeing amazing benefits. So come and give it a try, bro. If you're interested in joining, reach out to me, leave a comment on this video, or however you want to do it. But yeah, we'd love to have you, bro.
Right on.
And yeah, so John, thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was episode 4. Is it episode 4? Yeah, episode 4 of the CHADcast. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me.